just drive and shut up. I can adjust the camera.
It looks terrible. I see you're recording, but it looks like ass. It's got to come down and it's tweaked a little bit.
You're so complimentary. You're such a nice guy. Look at that.
It's got to go your way.
Oh, jeez, Louise. An inch here, an inch
That's
here.
not
a little
bad.
bit. Oh, not bad.
Is it zoomed all the way out?
It's perfect.
It is not perfect. There's a zoom on the screen too. See where it says W? Hit W. Okay, you're good. You're good. Okay, I think it's decent. I probably would have set it up a lot better, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and get started.
Okay, I'll push record now.
It's recording.
Oh.
It's been recording.
So, this is boring.
All right, let me kick us off. I gotta get around this. What kind of truck is this?
Carry some kind of a liquid. So you want to hire drivers. Don't apply because you won't make it.
Alrighty, here we go. We don't need to talk loud. Okay, hopefully the audio on this video is going to be good. We are driving a diesel truck and some of these roads are a little bit bumpy, so hopefully you can hear us. Got to kick it off by opening a Monster energy drink. Tove's got a water. He's right in front of the camera right now, but that's okay.
Ooh, I popped a Coke.
That's actually a Mountain Dew, but nice try, Skippy. But we thought it would be fun to make a little road trip video discussion, kind of like a podcast, but on YouTube. So where we just kind of talk about the trip. So let's go ahead and start. What did you think of the amount of scouting time? We did 2 weeks of scouting in New Mexico prior to the hunt. What did you think about that amount of time?
It was more than adequate. It was elk move around a lot, and we definitely were able to see, and we're real encouraged by the amount of big elk we saw. But as far as the amount of time to scout, it was more than adequate. We did get to narrow it down really well to start off the first day or two with one tree stand that we thought could not fail because we had time to monitor the camera there. It was just awesome. At one time, the trail cam had 6 bulls on it in one shot on a trail cam. That was incredible. We thought there's no way you could possibly sit here and not get an elk. So,
and to be fair, you could have gotten one from there, but it was like a smaller one. The bigger ones seemed to kind of move to different water holes or something by the time the season kicked off.
yeah.
But I would agree. I definitely think the scouting helped us for sure. But I agree that that was probably, like you said, plenty of time. If we drew that tag again, I think we would go like maybe 5 days early. Be good. But I do think scouting is valuable. I mean, we had what was nice.
Oh, yeah.
What was nice about scouting, in my opinion, was basically it gave us, like, rather than just like option A or maybe option A and B, we had like option A through like, I don't know, J or something. Like, we had a lot of different options. And that was simply because we had spent so much time scouting. We knew a lot of different good areas that, like, it gave us a lot of knowledge and a lot of options to choose from.
Yep, it did. It did that.
And then opening day came around. My opening day was like amazing. It was like one of my best days hunting in the field ever. It was just like, especially the afternoon. I mean, I remember I got out there, and it's funny because I was walking out to this spot, and it was hot. It was like 3 p.m., and I was like, this is dumb. I'm like an hour early at least. And I bumped this group of elk. I mean, right out of their bed somehow. And then all of a sudden they were going friggin' ballistic for like 5 hours. It was like unbelievable. I was with them for hours and hours. And I think I kind of captured that in film, but you know, it's never as good on film as it is in person. But I mean, it was insane how many elk there were. It was just like, it felt like September 20th on September 1st. It was insane.
Yep.
And then your opening day, if I recall, I don't think you saw anything.
Yeah, it was really dead. When we first spotted this dirt tank and set up cameras and so on, there was water in it, but that whole scouting period, there was really not much rain to speak of, and it kept, the pond or the dirt tank kept shrinking and shrinking, and that did affect the amount of elk that came into it. And when I watched it, towards the last time I watched it, I don't know, 2 or 3 days, the squirrels were actually having to walk in and dip down in to drink water out of hoof prints, because that's all the water that was left in it. We still thought the mud would be good enough for them to want to wallow, and they did, but not when I was there. So. Right,
and then I think it was the last day of season, or maybe the second to last day of season, in the evening, a big bull did hit that water. We had scouted a really nice one, but it didn't matter because you never really sat it in the evening anyway. Or, no, you know what, it might have been in the morning. I think it was in the morning, because you would always hunt the ground in the morning towards the end of the trip, and I think that real big bull showed up in the morning, so it didn't really matter because you never sat it in the morning. But it goes to show, had you have just sat it, you know, dusk to dawn every day, you know, you would have got him on a really big one. So it's like,
that's true.
That's the thing, you know, it would have worked. It just, you know, the thing is with that trip, and I think we both agree, man, it is, in an area like that, it's just so much fun to hunt them on the ground. You know, it's like, I did really well with that the first half of the trip, and then like you did really well the second half of the trip. And I mean, we were both in them every day, but like,
yeah, every day.
But I was like,
except
man,
the tree stand days.
Except some of the tree stand days. But how cool was that? The ground experiences.
It was very good. The one thing unique about it is it wasn't the kind of terrain or trees that you could catch them bedded down like you can a mule deer. Sometime you can, if it's the right kind of terrain, you can glass them until they bed down and then go after them.
Like desert terrain.
Like desert terrain, and there just wasn't that kind of terrain there. We couldn't pinpoint where they were bedding down. They would go into dense forests,
right? And
we couldn't really use that tactic. But
you could a little. I mean, scouting, we saw, just to add a little context, we did see a few like bedded down bulls, but not often, like, because it's so thick. Not that it was super thick, like I've definitely hunted thicker elk country, but like there's enough timber to where they can easily go hide.
Yeah,
you know,
and you don't know where they hid.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but what the on the ground was the thrill. There's no doubt about it. And we knew where there was a fair amount of elk from some information we got from people, but also information we gathered during scouting. So what really ended up working well is their bugling in the mornings and the evenings. They told you where they were at, and you could do super sneak or whatever tactic you wanted to try to get in there and get to them. And I definitely got close to some real big bulls. And I just didn't have that big break where it really came together. A couple times was very close, but you know how that is. It's very close, but it didn't happen.
So my experience on the ground was the very first day. The very first day of the hunt, I was like, I mean, it was, like I said, just ballistic. Like, and I had 2 opportunities at bulls the first day. I had the one that I drew on in the video and held on. I think it was like it was a small 6x6. The one I ended up shooting was bigger. But he was about 60 yards, and I snuck in, and he was with like 10 cows, and I drew on him and held, and felt really good. So that was the first day, and then I had a couple others that I maybe could have squeaked a shot on opening day as well. And then I had a monster 5x5. I have that one in the videos you guys probably saw with the big kickers off the back. I love that elk. I saw him a bunch of times, but I almost got him actually with a cow call on opening day. I blew a cow call, and that sucker bugled right next to me. Wind was terrible. It was blowing right to him. I wasn't expecting an elk to be on that side. And man, right when I took a step, he was coming right to me, and I almost had a shooting window, but he didn't walk through it. He just went away. He was like 30, 40 yards though, so that was exciting. And then I think it was day 2, I went back out there. Maybe day 3, I don't know, but I went out there deep, and man, that day, same thing. I actually was able to bed down a bull, but I didn't know exactly where he was. I was right above him, and I'd hear him bugle once in a while. And then at some point he got up and left, and I saw him leave. It was a nice bull, but there was another one bugling up over the next ridge. It's like 10 a.m. So I went over there, and I'm not kidding you, I blew a cow call, and I hear an elk start moving. I assumed it was moving away from me, and then I saw elk hooves beneath these little, they were like spaced out trees, and they were coming right to me, like 4 cows, and then boom, nice bull coming right to me. And I mean, I am so pissed the camera didn't get this on film, but he was like 45, I think it was like 40 or 45 yards in the open, perfect sunlight, and he just stops broadside. And I'm at a draw, just holding perfect on him, and he's in the open. It was like the most beautiful video, but my camera wasn't recording. I did get footage of that bull running away, and he was nice. That bull was probably, that bull was a little better than the one I shot, I think, but it was day 2. So I'm not bummed about passing him. And he was also a long ways from the road, which mine was not. So, man, that was exciting, seeing him come right to me, you know, and just stop, and that was cool. So, and then day 4 was when I missed my shot, you know, and people saw that play out, but like, super nice bull. I was with that herd for like 3 hours probably before that shot opportunity presented itself, and I don't know what happened. I felt so good about the shot. I was focusing on where it was going to hit him, so I knew like where my hit was. And I was like so shocked when I missed, and I still don't know what happened. I don't know if maybe there was a little twig I didn't see, or if I just made a bad shot, or...
You are known to trim some trees.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what happened, but the downside of missing that bull was I was a really, really nice bull, big 6x6. But the positive is I got to hunt for 6 more days, and I still got a nice 6x5. So, man, that first week was insane for me. And then, not that the second week wasn't in any way, but your second week was more like my first week. You were in them a lot, so why don't you talk about some of the close calls you had, and kind of walk us through the miss a little bit too that you had.
Well, I was following herds and bugles in the morning, pretty much hunting by myself, and I was doing like slow sneaks on them, trying to be real quiet, and I was being successful. And this one herd with some cow elk and a nice herd bull and a couple satellite bulls was moving down below me, and I got out ahead of them, and man, I got in so close on that one. It was so exciting. I had 2 spike bulls one was about 12 yards away and one was about 15 yards away, and I didn't consider shooting them. And then I got really close, and I was so close to the big herd bull. And
what's that sound? Is it that hitting the window, maybe? I don't know what that sound is.
It could be the thing flapping on the...
problem with having such good audio, guys, is that mic picks up everything, so I don't want that to be annoying. I think that fixed it.
Yeah.
So then, keep going.
Then I was really in him, and I don't know if you have that thought, but I've had it a few times. I'm going, this is it. Once I step around this juniper, he's right there, and I got a shot at him. And as I was taking like two steps or so to get to there, the cows started to move off, and they seemed to have suspected something. And the cows started to move away, and as I got around that bush, the bull was moving away, and he moved out of a great shot opportunity. I thought that was it. So then I got to watch him run up the side of the hill with his herd, and they didn't really know I was there, but they sort of knew something was wrong. And I saw him spar with a satellite bull that got too close, and then I saw him surprisingly turn that whole herd and sort of back towards me and head up towards the ridge. And it was right towards the time when they stopped bugling in the morning, maybe whatever it was, 9 o'clock or something. And son of a gun, they parked up there, and I couldn't see them really, but I went and hunted around several areas, and then as I was heading out, I thought I'm gonna go check out that ridge. And sure enough, I heard a little bugle up there, so I marched up this hill, got to the ridge, and surprised to me, I was a lot closer to the elk than I thought. There was a spike and a cow, and I was seeing them moving off. They saw something move because I was, I got in too close by accident. But I was walking down towards where I heard that bugle, real slow sneak, and I could see this rack and a head. So I ducked down, and it was about 70 yards away, and I was putting an arrow in, and I was getting ready to stand back up or start moving in on that one that was bedded down, it looked like. And as I stood back up, I saw that elk stand up. And here's the unique thing, is that elk was huge, but he started to walk right towards me like a curious deer does. And he was walking right towards me, so I shrunk into the grass with an arrow knocked and loaded, and he walked right up to me straight on at 20 yards, and he looked at this spot in the grass, which was me, for quite a while, and finally he turned and went back. Well, I had a tree ranged at 30, and he went beyond that tree, and I was looking at him through the fork of a tree, and he parked sideways for a bit, and I didn't re-range him, and I was going off guessing that it was about 40 yards, and I launched an arrow, and son of a gun, we'd always prayed for either a clean miss or a good fatal shot, and sure enough, I had a clean miss. I could see it, and I don't know what I did wrong, but I could see it go low and left. So I obviously had the range off, but I was also off to the left, and the arrow stuck in the log. It was very decisive that I had a clean miss. There wasn't anything on it, and I didn't get a shot back at that bull. But I can't give you the count on him, on his rack, but I know he was huge. And I know there was a 7x7 in that area, and he looked like that one to me. But I had another one where I went out early in the morning. I always went out early in the morning, but where they were bugling, and I got in and I saw this nice bull down below me, and I got out ahead of him. The terrain was real clear, so I had to do some really slow sneaking. And then I saw a bigger one on the next ridge over, and they were sort of bugling at each other. So I got down in the valley below, between the two of them, and sure enough, when I got into that valley, off to my left was the one that was sort of a 5x5, but a little bit of a raghorn. And I wasn't going to shoot him, but I was like 45 yards from him, and he was broadside. He hadn't a clue I was there. It would have been a pretty easy shot probably. But as I was doing that, I could see the other bigger one working his way down to the same gully, and I couldn't move because of the one on my left, and the big guy came in from my right straight ahead of me and started raking a bush, and he was about 80, and then he moved to 60, but then he wandered off to the right, and I never got a never got a place where I could shoot him, but I had just close call after close call, and it was certainly a thrill to be in there, right in their midst. And there was no cows around on that one. It was just 2 lone bulls. And I had another close call. I think that one James got on film, but James was behind me, and we were following some bugles, and we'd been working at it all morning and got close for several times. No real shots. And that one that James has on film, I was very close to being able to shoot him, but James had a good camera shot of him, and he could see where I was. And the cows, unfortunately, knew something was in the bushes down where I was. And I never did get a chance to draw on that one. But he would have been a very respectable bull also. So close calls many times, very exciting. And I was still blessed at the end with our most trusted dirt tank tree stand that hardly ever failed. I passed a couple elk already in that spot, smaller ones.
Well, I don't think we ever sat it and didn't see one, which is pretty crazy. And we also got to see a lot of bears. Some mule deer does. It was a blast to sit there, and I guess I'll kind of walk through when I got mine a little, and then you can talk about yours from the tree. But it was day 10, and I had decided that basically, like, if a mature bull, not a raghorn, but if a mature bull, like a mature 5x5 or a mature 6x6 came in, that I would shoot them. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I hear, sometimes elk can come in quiet, but this guy, I swear it sounded like he hit every single rock, rolled every rock, hit everything possible. He came in like a truck. So I thought it might be like a cow, a cattle, or a bull, whatever, a steer, or a horse. And sure enough, it was a nice bull. A nice 5x6 came out, and we had actually had that same bull on cam once or twice. I remember saying, that's a nice bull, and he came in, and I was like pretty sure I was going to shoot him, and he stopped right behind the tree. I was in a draw, so I had to let down, and then he took a drink and kind of turned and went across the dam, and I shot. It was about 32 yards probably, and I knew I hit him a smidge back because he was moving. I didn't stop him. I thought it was so close. I just let him, aimed a little forward and let it go. I hit him a little back, but within about a step, you can see it on the footage, he started shooting blood, so I felt pretty good about it, and he stormed off, and I don't think he made it further than maybe 150 yards, and then he went down, within about 20 yards of the road, so that was pretty nice. But super exciting. It's nice when you make a good shot, then it'll go far and go down quick, which he certainly did. So I'm very happy I shot him. You're always not sure at that time, like, maybe I shouldn't have shot him, but I'm glad I did. He's a nice bull, tons of mass, and yeah, I'm super happy I decided to shoot that bull. Now, your situation was a little different. I had 4 days left. You had an hour left.
Yeah.
So why don't you people have seen it, but why don't you kind of walk us through a little bit of what it was like in your head when that bull came in?
Well, I sat there. I think I saw some turkeys come in and a bear, and I did let that one go. I think that was that one day, but there was one that I wasn't thinking about shooting really, and he came in, and James had told me about this other elk coming in, sounded like an elephant, and as I was looking at him, started deciding whether to shoot him or not, I heard like an elephant coming in from the left side, and I put that on film, but he was drinking and piddling around, the elk was, and sure enough, here comes an elephant in. It was a big old black moo cow, and it came in and started to drink, scared off the elk, and I was going, now I don't have a decision to make, the elk's gone. And sure enough, the elk came back. That cattle did not scare him much, so he started feeding again, and then I decided not to shoot him, and I waited longer, and son of a gun, it was about an hour.
That was second to last day.
That was second to last day, yeah. So the next day I went there in the evening, and I said I was going to pretty much shoot any bull. And the first opportunity I had was about an hour and a half before the end of the season, and right below me was a nice bull. Just came in silently from out of nowhere, and he was already drinking. He sort of came behind some trees and stuff. You get the picture. Couldn't see him, and all of a sudden he's at the edge of the thing drinking. And uniquely, he wasn't muddy, and these guys weren't waddling or wallowing much there. But he sat there, and I quickly adjusted the camera, and I didn't even think about it twice. I thought he was a 5x4. Ended up being a nicer 5x5 than I thought. But he was so close, I think, that through my peep sight, I had to actually peek around the side of it to make sure it wasn't going to hit his shoulder. And I really focused on the shot, as we all do. And I put it in him, and I was really grateful to see him turn away and see my full arrow hanging out the other side, just barely by the fletches. So basically, I call that a pass-through shot. So I had 2 holes in him, and I heard him go crushing off, and mine only made it like 100 yards, and I could hear, I left the camera on, but it didn't come across on the audio, but you could hear him gasping and so on, and I knew that was a good sign. So I just left well enough alone, and when I finally got out of the tree, I went over and inspected the area. Didn't find my arrow right away, but I could see a real good blood trail, and it wasn't any tracking time involved. And I found him, and he was piled up and dead. And I found the arrow about 20 yards from where he died. The fletches finally let loose, and there he was. So I quickly went back to camp and got James so we could gut him out and get him cooled down, and then we'd take pictures and haul him out in the morning. And because there's so many bears there, we pulled the guts away from the animal. Thought that might help, and we put some of our dirty clothing around the elk and propped him open with a stick, and then came back the next morning to get him, and sure enough, the bears torn into the guts like we expected, and they nibbled a little bit on one of his rear hams, but not much.
And on the entrance.
Yeah, and on the entrance room. But I was really blessed that way, because it was a very lethal shot, and my arrow on the incoming side miraculously went right between 2 ribs like that. If the ribs were like that, it went that way, right through the ribs. It sliced through, didn't touch a bone basically on the entrance wound, and the exit wound it caught some bone, but it made it all the way out the other side. And I shoot a little lower poundage because of my shoulders, and I used an arrow that was known to be a deep penetration, but it's also expandable. And for that situation, at 20 yards, it worked out great.
So, why don't we talk a little bit about the E-tag that they have in New Mexico, and how we like that, what we thought about it, and what it is. So, what the E-tag is basically on your phone. It's called the New Mexico E-tag app, and you hit the app, and it opens up, and it has your license in there, and it has your tag, and it has your different permits, all in an app. So you don't have to carry a license with you or a tag with you. It's all on your phone. And then when we get our elk, you just hit a button that says tag my animal, and it gives you a number, and you write it on like a piece of tape or something and put it around the antler or the gambrel, and you have a tagged animal. And then even if you're out of service, you can tag them, and then when you get into service, it registers and goes in. So that was pretty cool, didn't you think?
Yep, it's convenient, because with OnX and things like that, you always have your cell phone with you, and I always carry my wallet, so I have identification. And then the thing you got to remember to have with you or accessible somewhere is some good strong duct tape and like a Sharpie. And that's all it takes. You just wrote the number on there and the day to kill, and it's so new. Some we had to explain a little bit to the meat processor how it worked, but they were pretty easy to work with, and it worked out well.
Yeah, so we really like that. And then how we handled the meat was the camp we stayed at, Camp the Tall Pines, actually allowed us to use a freezer they had. So when I got my bull, we quartered him out and took it to that chest freezer and put him in there and froze him solid. And then when he got his bull, we went back the next morning, took photos, quartered him out, went and put him in that freezer for a full day. And then we left the next day and put him in a ice chest and drove to San Juan Meats, right on the border of New Mexico and Colorado. About an hour from where we were hunting in Colorado. Took the meat to them, so that worked pretty well.
Yeah.
Got all our meat taken care of, and we're happy with it. The meat went smooth. We got 4 coolers full in the back, and then we started our Colorado hunt, which is a state we've never hunted. It was an area we've never hunted, and it's for mule deer, which is really hard to hunt, as anything is with a bow. But why don't you dive in a little bit to Colorado?
Well, Colorado is unique for us, and maybe different from others who might hunt in Colorado. We had a friend of a friend who owns a ranch, 1,700 acres or something like that. 1,200 acres, and they have shot a lot of nice mule deer bucks off of there, and we've seen pictures that a friend of ours has taken there, and we thought this will be awesome, you know, we'll just hunt there. So it wasn't really the mountains of Colorado, it was sort of more the ranch land area, and there was some ridges of pinyon juniper pines, but mostly it was the majority of the ranch is like pasture land and sage fields, but the deer would love the pasture land. In this case, it was hemp fields they were going to, and they would eat there, you know, a couple hours before sunset and a couple hours after sunrise. They would be out in that hemp field, and then they were very educated deer because they'd been road hunted a lot, I think. They never really got in the open other than that hemp field, and we could not hunt that. It was private land. So we tried to figure out where they're coming off the hemp field and where they're bedding. We found some really good trails, and all the trails we would find would be into the pinyon junipers far enough so that nobody could see them from the roads. So they were what do you call it, wary deer, that's for sure. And we found some good trails that worked out, and we got some deer to come by us. We used pop-up blinds. The trees, generally speaking, a tree stand would probably be better, but there were very few trees that you could have big enough to mount a tree stand in. So we set up pop-up blinds and had deer and a few elk come by us, and we did a lot of glassing at first to find out where the deer were, and then did some walking and so on to find out what trails they were using. But
and we ran about 6 trail cams too, and all our cams had nice bucks on them, and the marijuana field had nice bucks too, and you know, we would see them, but when we sat our blinds, we never had any of those nice bucks come by, really.
I did one time.
He did one time, and he could talk about that. But when I got my buck, I was sitting there, and I had almost never seen anything in the morning. He saw more in the morning, and I would see him in the evening. But one morning, I was sitting there, and sure enough, I see a doe over by the hemp field, and some movement. I saw the doe start heading my way, and then all of a sudden I see a small forked horn coming my way, and this time of year the bucks hang out with bucks, and then there was another buck, and then a third buck, and that one I thought was pretty nice. I said, okay, I think if that buck gets the opportunity, I'll shoot him. And they all filtered through about 35 yards, and you guys saw what happened, but I got a shot, hit a buck, and got a nice forked horn that I'm very proud of, and I'm glad I shot him, because Tove hunted another 7 days and really didn't have too many opportunities aside from when you saw that big one. So why don't you talk us through that one that you were close to?
By the way, if any of you need any tree trimming or hedge trimming by your house, James is pretty good with the rage. He can trim and cut branches like you wouldn't believe.
For sure.
So he killed that thing, but luckily the branch was very close to the deer, and even though the broadhead sliced off a pretty good size oak little limb and a couple other limbs, it was close enough to the buck that it still made a nice lethal shot. We found him fairly quickly, really. So as far as mine went, this one camera was popping up with some good bucks, and it was near sort of an unused fence, but the fence seemed to sort of guide the deer to the corner of the fence, and it had a big hole in it, and they would use that little area of pinyon junipers and that fence to get near the edge of the road, and then there was a big right-of-way for gas lines and a road there, and they don't like to be in the open, so that was one of the narrow spots and they would literally go in there and hold up at the corner, and they'd look both ways, and then they'd run across the clearing. Even though there's hardly anybody out there, they did not like to be in the open. So while I was hunting, James, the Camp Princess, set up a pop-up blind out near that corner for me, and I sat there the first night. What was it? Morning, and son of a gun, man. I mean, it had barely started, and I looked out my window to the right, and there was a beautiful buck standing right there, a nice shooter buck. And I quickly, got my bow in my hand and turned on the camera, and he was behind a juniper, and when he came out the other side, he was only 20 yards away, and if he somehow, when I saw him, he was looking at that blind straight at it, and he either saw me moving in there or was just really blind shy. But when he came out the other side of that juniper, he was already moving pretty fast, and I couldn't get a shot, but that was really close to being able to get one of the bigger ones. And then when adrenaline was calming down and I didn't get a shot, I heard something out the right side of the blind, and I peeked out there, and there was a nice forked horn there. Blind wasn't set up to shoot that way, and you know what that's like. If I moved around and tried to adjust it, that deer would be gone, and pretty soon he left pretty fast away from me too. But both those deer seemed very surprised that their little route there had a pop-up blind in it. So I thought about it a long time while I was sitting there, and saw another doe come through and sort of spooked because of the blind also. So I looked around while I was in the blind, and I could see a tree in a good position. So James and I went the next day and set up a good tree stand in a good spot. And unfortunately, every animal that came in near that area just seemed real wary of that area. And so I would alternate between that blind and the one blind where James shot his deer out of. And I had a couple of bucks come in close, but just wouldn't give me a shot. And let's see, the last day of the season in Colorado, we had my elk tag for dinner, put salt and pepper on it. Deer tag for dinner, and ate it, because I did not end up being successful. But it still was a load of fun, and it was nice people on the ranch. They would invite us in for dinner. They call it lunch. We would call it a noon meal, and we'd eat with the extended family. There's 15 of extended family that live there on the ranch, and nice people. And we helped them slaughter a big old big bull, and process it and get it hung in a cooler.
Yeah, like you said, all in all, I mean, it was tough hunting for sure. Hunting's never easy, but I know some people think that hunting private land is super easy. It's a cakewalk. It definitely wasn't. In fact, in New Mexico, which was all on public land, there was actually a lot more opportunity than there was here. But it's an area I definitely think we would hunt again, especially with 1 year of knowledge. I think if we had could get there earlier in the season. We hunted the second 2 weeks. I think if we could hunt the first 2 weeks, it might even be a little better, and we know there's nice bucks there, so we enjoyed it. Like I said, everyone there was awesome, and we're grateful we got to hunt. And all in all, you know, to sum up the trip, I mean, you can never complain with 3 or 4 tags filled. We batted 750, you know, with bows. So awesome trip, and it was a long trip, that's for sure, the longest hunting trip we've ever done, but that was just the way it worked out with 2 back-to-back seasons in 2 different states. So it was a lot of fun, and we're heading home with a bunch of meat. And so, I mean, other than a flat tire on the truck one day, we haven't really had too many mishaps, and we hope that stays the same in the last 6 hours of our drive here. But yeah, I mean, awesome trip. You know, thanks to everybody who watched the videos, and
Yeah.
now it's time to get home and get some work done, and you know, start doing a little bit of local hunting in D16. So that's what we got. Thank you guys, and we'll see you in the next video.